Sadek Dalad with base 94b. We're discussing the story of Sanhedrin's success in the northern kingdom, in his conquest, his attempt at the southern kingdom, and his ultimate doom. So we are 6 lines from the bottom of the page. There's a parenthesis, and then it's right after the parenthesis. Amar Rav Huna. Rav Huna states, Eser Masois, there were 10 journeys, 10 stops in his journey. Nasa Oiser Rasha, that wicked one traveled, referring to Sanhedrin. But Oiser Yoim on that day. So he went to 10 locations. Shenemar, as the verse reads. So let's see. Baal Ayat, he arrived at Ayat, that's 1. Some of them are not going to be counted, as we'll see in a moment. So let's try to count how many we have total. Baal Ayat, he came to a place called Ayat, that's 1. Avar b'Migrain, he passed through a place called Migrain, that's 2. Lemik, how do you pronounce this? Michmash, Yakbet Kelev. In Michmash, he put his stuff down, that's 3. Avru Ma'arava, or Marba, Mabara. He passed through Mabara, that's 4. Gava Mullen. He took up residence. He stayed overnight in, or he spent time in Geba Mullen Lanu. Charada Harama. Rama trembled. That's 5. Givashol, there's a place called Givashol. Nasa ran away, that's 6. Sali Kolech Bas Galim, a place called Galim raised up its voice and crying and shrilling. Hakshivi Lisha, listen up Lisha, that's the 3rd place, 8th place. Ania Antois, I'm not sure how to pronounce that word. Anatois. Poor Anatois, it's the 9th place. Nodada Medimna. Medimna is in flight, is running. Nadada means running. This is 10. Now Yoshvi HaGavim Heizu, the people sitting in Gavim got scared or ran for cover. So that's 11. Counting.
I thought there were 10.
So they said 10, but there's 11. We'll skip the parentheses because we're going to get that back soon. So it says Gemara Hanituva. This is more than 10. There's 11. Hanituva having this is more than 10. So says the Gemara, Tzadli Koilech Bas Galim, when the verse says that the voices of Bas Galim, or the daughters of Galim, the place presumably was a place called Galim, started crying and their voices were crying. The Gemara says that's not a location, but not Navi the Ka'amar. Navi, the prophet is speaking. The Ka'amar and Yisrael telling this to the Jewish people. Tzadli Koilech Bas Galim, daughters of Galim. The Jews being referred to the daughters of Galim. Galim are being referred to our forefathers. So the prophet is telling Jewish people, "O daughters of Galim, raise up your voices because you are in distress." In elucidating that, the Gemara explains, "Bit Shel Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, the daughter of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob," referring to the Jewish people. Sha'asu mitzvahs k'galei hayam, they, our forefathers, made mitzvahs like the waves of the ocean. That's what the word galim means, waves, as if to say mighty, powerful, and important. So they had their mitzvahs like galim, like waves, and you are the daughter of them. Hakshiva, so you should raise up your voice in crying. And it says Hakshiva Lisha, listen to the Lisha. We said before that Lisha was one location. Now the Gemara is saying it's not a location, it's part of the prophet speaking to the people and saying, be wary of the Lisha. What's Lisha? So it says, explains the Gemara. Mahai, from this guy, Sanhedrin, look to Staifi, don't be scared of him. Because he's not going to attack you in the south. He's not going to be successful. Ella, rather, Staifi be afraid of another guy coming in a couple of generations, a couple of years from now, from Nebuchadnezzar, the wicked one. And he is a Lisha. Lisha is a term for lion. Matl Ka'aryeh, who's likened to a lion. Shneimar, as the verse reads, with respect to Nebuchadnezzar's rise to power and his eventual success in the prophecy about his eventual success in destroying the temple, the unfortunate success, says the verse, a lion rose up from the thicket, from like the bushes, referring to Nebuchadnezzar. So the prophet is saying, Hakshiva Lisha, listen to the lion, not this guy, not Sanhedrin, but be afraid of Nebuchadnezzar, who's a lion. Okay. There's what to be said here with respect to the Jews being referred to a daughter. Kabbalah talks about different times Jewish people are referred to as daughter or mother. It's both in the feminine, as is often the case. Knesset Yisrael itself is in feminine. Jewish people are often referred to as the feminine and God the masculine, but sometimes mother, sometimes daughter. And depending on what level, feminine Kabbalah is the recipient. Jewish people being the recipient of Hashem, like the moon recipient of the sun, and other such metaphors. But there's a difference between recipient of daughter versus recipient of mother. In Kabbalistic language, it's Malchus versus Bina. And it depends on the state the Jewish people are in, that they're either receiving on a lower end, daughter, which is just the action, as opposed to daughter or Bina level, which has more insight. So there might be something to be said about the state of Jewish people as a daughter of the forefathers, and that there's some connection, but it's still a lower level somewhat, maybe. And there's, like for example, the Jews are called Bas Zion, daughters of Zion. And even though it's a lower level, Chassidus explains how it's even on a higher level because their commitment to action, even when they're lacking insight, and other such things. But so there might be something to be said here. But anyway, okay. One of the locations listed in the top of Tzaddik Amud Aleph 95a. One of the locations listed on Sancheiv's quick travel through 10 locations in one day is Ania Anatos. How do you pronounce it? Anatos? Anatos. Something like that. Poor Anatos. Why is it called Poor Anatos? For what for?
That's probably where they got it.
Yeah, possibly. And as Rashi points out, the term here, Poor Anatos, is written in the future sense. Not past tense poor, but the future tense poor, as if to say it's going to be poor. So says the Gemara, this is because Yirmiyah ben Chaklaya, Yirmiyah, the prophet Jeremiah, will come at a later date, Misnava Allah Manatais. The prophecy of doom that Yirmiyah is going to deliver, describing the eventual destruction at the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, happens in Anatais. So the prophet now, describing Sancheiv's travels, is already referring to Anatais as a poor location because later it's going to be a location of doom. See as the verse reads, Divrei Yirmiyah ben Chaklayu, ben Chalkayu, Yirmiyah son of Chalkayu, the prophet ben Akoyanim, from the priest who was a prophet, Asher ben Anatais, which was in Anatais, Be'eretz Mitzrayim, and the land, in Eretz Binyamin, land of Binyamin, land of Benjamin, and there he prophesied about the future doom, and therefore Anatais already now is considered poor Anatais, or will be poor because of the bad news it brings. Okay, getting back to this idea that Nebuchadnezzar is referred to as a lion. The prophet tells the people, don't be afraid of this guy, Sanhedrin, he's not going to be successful, but be afraid of this other guy who's called Laish, who is a lion, referring to Nebuchadnezzar, comes sometime later to destroy the temple. And he you should be afraid of. So it says the Gemara, Midami Hassam. Can we compare the two situations? Hassam, there, in the verse describing Nebuchadnezzar himself, who arises from the bushes, the lion that arises from the bushes, there the verse uses the term Ari, which is lion. Hach, over here, the verse uses the term Laish, which is also lion. But for some reason, the Gemara over here doesn't like the idea of making comparative analysis between two different lions referred to by different names. But Amar Rechen and Rechen says no reason to think of them as distinct. A lion is a lion, doesn't matter what term you use. In fact, Rabbi Yochanan says, Shisher Shemes Yesh La'ari. A lion has 6 names. Elohein, and they are as follows: Ari, Kfir, Lavi, Layish, Shachal, Shachatz. Why does a lion need 6 names? I don't know. I'm just telling you what the Gemara says. Clearly there's more depth here, but it's what the Gemara says. Lion has 6 names, and therefore the fact that it's called here Layish and there Ari doesn't make a difference. The prophet's saying, don't be afraid of Sanhedrin, be afraid of the lion, whether Layish, whether Ari, whether Lavi, whatever it is. He's going to be successful in destroying the southern kingdom and the temple with it. Now the Gemara gets back to the original verse. The original statement was that there's 10 stops he made. We found 11. So we excluded it by saying that when the verse says, raise up your voices, O daughters of Galim, Galim isn't the location, but rather Galim is the forefathers. And the verse says, O daughters of Galim, as in the Jewish people, don't be raise up your voices in prayer. But in the same interpretation, we took out one of the 11 locations by saying it's not a location, it's talking to the Jewish people. But in that same interpretation, we actually took out 2 locations. We took out raise up your voices, daughter of Galim. That Galim is not a location, but Galim refers to our forefathers and the Jewish people, the daughter of Galim. And then we also took up this idea where it says, listen up, Layish, which we said was one of the locations. Now we said Layish is not one of the locations. Layish is actually the lion who you're supposed to be afraid of. So now we went from 11 to 9. And we're supposed to have 10. So says the Gemara, Yehachi Batzulahu. If this is the interpretation, that raise up your voices, daughters of Galim is not a location, it's talking about the Jewish people. And listen up, Layish is not talking about a location called Layish, but listen to the Layish, to the lion, which is going to come later, known as Nebuchadnezzar. Then, Batzulahu, you've lost one. You have 9. So says the Gemara, one of the locations which we translated before is Avru Abara. He passed through Abara. Says the Gemara, Tartinu, it's actually 2. Abru and Abara are 2 different locations, making a total of 9. Making a total of 10, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. Okay, now the final part of that verse is as follows. And this takes us to an interesting part of history. And the Gemara asks, and it's the final comment in this Gemara before, this will actually bring us into a kind of detour in the Gemara, which will take us down a whole history route of the backstory of the statement made here, a little bit of which we'll give you now. The Gemara says like this: My oid hayom benoiv. What's the meaning? Oid hayom benoiv lamod. Or till on that day, a stop at Noiv. The simple reading would mean that this is actually another location, or the last location he's gone to. Listed 10 locations, and then the 11th being he stopped at a place called Noiv. But the Gemara, as we'll see, does not include this as a location, but rather, when it says that the Noiv comes to a stop, it's not a location, but actually a description of the arc of history. And it says like this: Amar Rav Huna says, in that day, the day that he traveled these 10 stops to try to hasten himself to Jerusalem so he can attack the southern kingdom. That's what we're describing here. He went to these 10 locations because he's quickly trying to get to Jerusalem. This has been his prized possession. He's been running around killing all these people trying to get to Jerusalem, the coveted Jerusalem. So in that day, the sin of Noiv was still lingering over the Jewish people. And Amrile Kaldai, and therefore his astrologers told him, listen, the Jewish people sinned at a place called Noiv. We'll describe that in a second. So the astrologer said, today's the last day when that sin still lingers over their heads. So azlis ha'idna, if you will attack Jerusalem today, yachlul isla, you will be successful. So rush and get there, which is why he's running through the 10 locations. V'iloi, and if you don't attack them today, and the sin of Noiv is no longer hanging over their head, you won't be successful in getting Jerusalem. So, a place or distance that normally takes 10 days to travel, going from one location to the next, 10 locations we described earlier, he was successful in doing it in 1 day. So he traveled in 1 day the amount that would take 10 days to travel. With a massive army, it's not like himself riding on a horse. Now, when he arrived at Jerusalem, Shadule Bistarki, they laid down mats or like benches kind of thing, like a cushion seating, and they stacked them up higher and higher. Ad the Sulik, to the point that he was able to climb up on top of this whole stack of cushions, seating, whatever. Shura, and he sat down on the top row. To the point he was able to oversee the entire Jerusalem. So they stacked up like this lookout. He climbed up, sat on top, and had a view of Jerusalem. Kechaza, when he saw it, it looked small in his eyes. It looked small, it didn't look big. Amar, he said, Halaydahi karta Yerushalayim. This is the great city of Jerusalem. And for this reason I have uprooted all my legions from my land and traveled all this way. This is it. And all these countries I conquered on the way was all for this place. For this tiny little piece of real estate perched on a mountain, this little shtetl. What is this? The truth is that as you take any tour in Jerusalem and you look at the archaeology, they'll explain to you when they show you all the archaeology why it was such a coveted land, because it was perched on a mountaintop and had therefore fortification. There's only 3 sides you were able to attack, because the other sides are mountain, and they built walls around 3 times, and it also had a well with water, which usually had one or the other. If you had water, you're in a low place, easy to attack, and if you're in an upper place in a mountain, you don't have any water. And Jerusalem had both, which is why David chose it. This is what all the archaeologists tell you. But nonetheless, from his vision at the time, it looked very small and looked not useful. But historically speaking, it was a strategically coveted land, not just a spiritually coveted land, or make the reverse. Because it's a spiritually coveted land, therefore it happens that in the physical world it's also a coveted capital. But at this juncture, he's sitting up perched on top of these chairs, and he sees that it's small. It's small and weak, he says. From all the other, this is smaller and weaker than all the other countries and nations that I've conquered. But with the strength in my hand. All of a come, he got up. It's 2 different expressions, like he sit up and got up. Umanid Beresha, and shook his head in like dismay, like he was disappointed. He like shook his head in dismay and then waved his hand like, Jerusalem and the temple and the Azara, it lists Zion, the temple, and the Azara, the courtyard. Waste of time. Set there killing millions of people, conquering all this land, and here I am looking at the prized possession. Waste of time. He's upset. So Amri, his people told him, let's extend your hand now. Let's go attack them. Let's go do it. Amar Lahu, he told his advisors, Tamisu, are you joking with me? Like, come on, this is a joke. This is a smaller land. Tomorrow, each of you are going to bring back for me a stone like a seal, like a stamp. In other words, it's going to be so easy to conquer, you'll be able to chip away at the stone very easily. And each of you will be able to come back with it. So he made that mistake, and he stayed overnight. Miyad, so right away that night, it was that night, Hashem, and an angel of God goes out, and struck the camp of Ashur, the Assyrians, that is Sanhedrin's camp, as he's camped out of Jerusalem waiting to attack the next day. 185,000 men were all struck by a scheme of Breaker. And they woke up in the morning, they rose, and there they are, all dead corpses. That was his fatal mistake. Okay, so all this because they'd been successful on that day. There was still the sin of Noiv hanging over the Jewish people, and he would have been successful had he not waited the next day. What's the story with Noiv? So quickly, the story is, and we'll get more details. The Gemara is going to take a detour now to discuss the story with Noiv. But the bottom line is that the city of Noiv protected King David, when he was the beginning of the rebellion of King Shaul. And it's so early on in the rebellion that it seems, from the verses, that the people in Noiv didn't even know that David was in rebellion. Because when King Shaul finds out about it and comes to Noiv and questions Noiv was a town of Kohanim, it was a town of priests. And when he questions the lead priest, the lead Kohen there, he says, what do you mean? I've always prayed for you, Shaul, and here your son-in-law, right? David married to Shaul's daughter. Your son-in-law, who's your faithful servant, is like, I prayed for him also. I had no idea about this, about the skirmish. What's the word? The tension between you two. The rift. I had no idea about this. I prayed for you. I prayed for David. It's like, what are you accusing me? What do you want from me? And in the meantime, David had already left, but he was there for some time, and he had already escaped to another city. And Shaul Shaul, what's it called? Shaul commands that the priests, the Kohanim of Noiv, be slaughtered, be massacred. They refuse until one of his servants, Doeg, right? I think it's Doeg.
That played an instrumental role.
Yeah, Doeg not just killed the Kohanim, but killed every man, woman, child, ox, and donkey. And there was one Kohen who escaped, runs to where King David is, and tells him what happened. And David HaMelech says, "I'm taking responsibility for what happened at Noiv, because I knew that Shaul would be told about it, and I didn't tell you that there was tension between us. I kept you guys in the dark, so I'm just responsible for the blood that King Shaul shared." And as commentaries add, the neighboring towns of Noiv, none of them stood up to protect Noiv. So there's really a collective responsibility that the Jews shared for allowing Noiv to be attacked and for this massacre of Kohanim and their families. And therefore, the burden of that sin lingered over the Jewish people for almost 700 years. How much time between David HaMelech and Chizkiyahu? If the temple stood for 400 years, and this is 100 years before the temple, 130 years, so you're talking about 370 years of the temple, right? No, 270 of the temple years, plus all the time that you had. No, it's about 400 years, let's say, a little less, between 300 and 400 years between this story and, not exactly number, but between 300 and 400 years between that story and when Sanhedrin attacks, and that's how long the collective sin of the Jewish people lingered over the Jewish people, to the point that had Sanhedrin attacked one day earlier, he would have been successful in getting Jerusalem. So tomorrow, God willing, in the coming days, the Gemara is going to take a little detour and give us more details. So the story of Sanhedrin itself is a detour, because this all started because we're talking about the resurrection of the dead and the coming of Mashiach. The Gemara said that Chizkiyahu was an idea for God being from Mashiach. And then, so there we are on the detour to talk about Chizkiyahu and Sanhedrin, and now we're going to take a detour on the story of the city of Noiv and King David and so on.
I may be missing. How did they know it was the last day of the edict?
Because of this word, Oid Hayom B'Noiv. When the verse describes the 10 locations they went to, it concludes with Oid Hayom B'Noiv Lamed. There is still the day for Noiv to stand. So the wording literally would mean that they stopped at a place called Noiv, but the wording should have been different if that's what it meant.
But did they know at the beginning how long
it would be? No, they didn't know. The verse is telling us that.
The verse okay, so
I don't know if the Jewish people knew that, but the verse.
Okay.
And Sanhedrin's astrologers knew that also, because they suggested him attack now.
Okay.
But we learned all this from the word, from the phrasing of the verse. When the verse said they arrived in a town called Noiv, it doesn't say it properly. It should have said.
But there's nothing in Scripture that tells you in advance that this is going to last for X.
No, not that I know of.
It just you find out about it now. And
yes, I don't know before they knew how long it would last.
Okay.
It's all from the awkward phrasing of the verse and saying that they arrived at Noiv.
Yeah.
Which makes it sound like Noiv is still standing till today.
Yeah.
That's the phraseology in the verse. Thus saying the sin of Noiv still stands till today. All right, have a wonderful day, everybody. God willing, continue tomorrow.